So good afternoon. My name is John O'Donnell. I'd like to share some thoughts on hybrid cloud options here on AWS. Just a quick background on maybe before we jump in. I'm a senior solution architect here in AWS, as Ron mentioned, in the suddenly important and interesting Pennsylvania area, where we're going to enjoy the next 4 or 5 days and then be ignored for another 4 years, but where I'm the migration lead for the Northeast. So basically, I've recently focused on helping Vanguard, who's one of my previous customers, migrate and modernize. And a lot of that really did focus around moving to the cloud, moving to serverless, moving to containers, as Ron mentioned, but also setting up hybrid workloads, right? Because as much as folks want to move to the cloud, there's always going to be a data center presence. So I'm going to try to share some highlights of our hybrid cloud. Lee's going to cover actually going into a deeper dive with Outpost, which is another great technology, but I'm going to cover some other areas today, just kind of give you guys a sampling of some of that. So just real quick, what is hybrid cloud? So here's an example. So I think if we're worked in data centers all before, this is just an example, actually kind of one of my customers that they have a little bit of retail, they have a call center, and they have a data center. And this should be very familiar to almost all of us if we worked in the data centers. Generally, the next phase in the cloud is companies add SaaS providers, for example. So, for example, Salesforce, Office 365, services that kind of plugged in maybe initially, but weren't tightly integrated into the cloud. I'm sorry, into the corporate data center. And then kind of the next phase is really extending and adding the power of the cloud to your corporate data center. And this is basically hybrid cloud in this kind of full context, as far as I have remote locations, I have physical devices, I have things like IoT, like Steve covered a little bit earlier, I have SaaS providers, but then I have ERP systems perhaps working on premises that are augmented by power that's running in the cloud for, say, storage or compute or other types of things. So again, this is an example of kind of where you have on-premise software as a service as well as a public cloud provider. So what are some of the goals for hybrid architecture? So I kind of gave you a background on what hybrid architecture is, what you do with that. So basically, again, I'm not going to read these to you, but it's basically, customers want a hybrid architecture to provide consistency across their on-premise and cloud environments. So basically a consistent operating model. I don't need 2 different ways, 3 different ways to operate. I can kind of do that across a set of tools and services. Leveraging the tools and skills that we have built over time. Consistent management tools that are easy to use, that people know to use. Obviously, increasing your service level agreements with your customers. If you're in IT, customers always demanding higher uptime, greater availability, those type of things. So how do you do that with the cloud? And we'll kind of dig into some of those. And then really using the same services, APIs, and tools to build once and deploy anywhere. And we'll show you some of those in a moment. So why do you need hybrid cloud? I think that companies are moving their workloads to the cloud. I think that's probably happened. It's in the process of happening. Depending on the size of your company, you're probably in a various phases of that life cycle. But some applications need to be re-architected, modernized. You got containers, you have serverless, you have a panoply of ways to do that. But there are some applications, either from a regulatory perspective, latency perspective, or simply that I can't move this. I have customers who literally have like Windows NT workloads running in their scientific areas, their data center. That thing is literally never going to move. It'll run forever, but it will never move, right? So there needs to be an ability to kind of, as Microsoft would call it, embrace and extend the data center to the cloud. So, running these workloads on premises, then I want to be able to run them also in the cloud. I want them to integrate, and I'm going to leverage the skills and resources that I already have. I don't want to have 2 sets of people, an on-premise ops group and a cloud ops group. So really where I see the great value of the hybrid option is data center extension. Again, data centers, I know companies that are shuttering data centers. I know companies that have moved to AWS, but then maybe moved to colos, right? So I think, data centers are going to be here for the foreseeable future, at least until I retire. But what are some options that we have there? Cloud bursting. So for example, to throw workloads there, if you have seasonal basis, quarterly things, end of year, backup and disaster recovery, we'll actually cover that. Having been through the old school backup and disaster recovery of physical data centers and shipping tapes, this is a great thing to really dig into. And actually knowing that you can restore and actually meet your RPO, RTO requirements, great thing to have. And then, moving applications, I can extend my network. It's not simply just taking things from my data center, moving them and shuttering a data center. I'm extending applications and adding additional functionality. And then kind of, finally is, adding geographic expansion that you can't do in data centers. So I'm a company, I have, 2-3 data centers here in the States. I need, for whatever reason, to set up a data center in Germany for data, residency roles. I can't, it's gonna take me 2 years to set up a data center in there, or even with the colo, it's months and months and months of effort. In AWS, I can do that in minutes, right? So these are some of the reasons, and I can tie those together in a very short period of time. So I'm not going to bore you with logos here, but I think you may recognize most of these companies as far as these are companies that are using AWS in a hybrid manner. Love them or not love them, Comcast is doing great work there with their video products. J&J, I know them, I've worked with them personally. They do an amazing amount of work in AWS for disaster recovery. And if, with clinical studies and whatnot, they're doing great work there. Celgene, who I also worked with, again, is doing a lot of hybrid work in AI, ML, and those type of things. So again, the data still stays in the data center from a residency perspective. They process it in the cloud and they send the data back. Again, it's a growth process. They are trying to get 100% cloud native, but these things do take time. So I'm going to review basically 5 kind of groupings of AWS offerings here. Obviously, all the core services on the left here, VPC, Direct Connect, Systems Manager. If you don't know what they are, probably have another session or someone else will cover them in detail. But these are kind of the core services that all of our services work with, right? So the nice thing is that AWS is really a set of building blocks or Legos that do snap together, and they all work together in a cohesive manner. The services as far as the transfer family, VMware Cloud, CloudEndure DR, Snowball Edge, and end user computing. So let's, these are the areas. So I'm going to cover again, this is not all of our hybrid options, but these are some samples of where I've worked with and seen some great success with customers. So VMware Cloud, what's that? I did cover that in a previous presentation, but VMware Cloud is pretty much like the prototypical data center extension. If you have vCenter, you have VMware in your current on-premise environment, you can basically extend your data center in a hybrid manner, and it literally will extend your on-premise data center into AWS in a seamless manner. As you launch a VM, you can launch it on-prem, you can launch in AWS, it launches. It's all kind of one big happy family as far as the unified network. VMware Cloud is sold and delivered and supported by VMware, so you're working with a company that you know, but it's hosted in AWS. So it's really kind of the best of both worlds as far as that. Not trying to sell it, but I'm saying it's a very powerful offering if you're very VMware centric and you don't want to make any changes. So literally working with VMware Cloud on AWS, you can extend your data center to AWS Cloud in a very seamless manner with little to no change, actually no changes to your operating model that you have today. What's really amazing about this is that those services that are running in the AWS in the VMware Cloud on AWS then can directly interface with native AWS services, for example, Lambda, which Kapil is going to cover later, Kinesis, other great technologies. So instead of having a bit of a can and string approach, is you're able to move your more modern applications in the VMware Cloud and AWS and then call some of these native application services, right? So if you need a quick way to get into the cloud, VMware Cloud is definitely a great use case for that. So what are some target use cases? Obviously, cloud migrations. I'm just going to take my stuff, I'm going to run it in the cloud. That's one option. Again, where I see the great value in VMware Cloud is data center extension, is I'm going to keep my data center and I'm going to use the cloud to augment. And maybe over time, the cloud will grow and grow and grow, but I'm going to have basically kind of an equal footing as far as both areas there. Disaster recovery, again, having come from, from big pharma, from life sciences, you can use VMware Cloud as basically, your basically disaster recovery in the cloud option, and that's built in. They have a lot of new offerings that have been released lately to kind of actually use some of our less expensive storage. So again, a great thing to look into if you need like a very, very high, very powerful DR recovery that's VMware native and you know how to operate. And then again, like I spoke about before, is modernizing applications and extending them with AWS services running in VMware Cloud. So you can do pretty much, I am just going to move it, I'm going to extend it, I'm going to add DR, and I'm going to upgrade applications. You can do all these with VMware Cloud. So it's a nice offering to have, nice thing to get to know. So CloudEndure disaster recovery. So if you were in my previous session last week, I covered CloudEndure from a migration perspective. CloudEndure is another offering. It's an offering from AWS that offers basically a low RPO, RTO disaster recovery solution. So the difference between this and VMware Cloud is that this will create native EC2 instances of your on-premise or other cloud vendor architecture. So or even AWS to AWS if that's what you want to do. So CloudEndure DR will basically leverage the CloudEndure block level replication technology, replicate all of your servers in real time, and allow you to spin those up in minutes as far as that. So from a recovery time, recovery point objective, these are in the minutes versus hours, or even sometimes days from a classical DR scenario, some of the ones I've been through. There's, from a skill set perspective, the EC2 instances are there, you stand them up, you switch a few DNS settings. Obviously there's more work than that, but it's ready to go, right? So CloudEndure, from the driver perspective, is these are generic disaster recovery perspective drivers. CloudEndure can cover all those. So how does it work? Again, this is similar to the migration service, and I think that's what's really great about this is you basically create a CloudEndure account, you deploy an agent, it'll create continuous block level data replication. And again, just as a reminder, block level replication, if you're not a storage guy or girl, is every change to your disk in real time is replicated to AWS to what we, an EBS volume, which is our kind of disk-based storage. That happens continuously, constantly, 24/7 until you tell it to stop. When you do need to do a test or a cutover into a disaster recovery, you launch EC2 instances of those machines. Those disks will mount up, and they'll be exact replicas of the machine at that point where you actually launch the test or the cutover instance, right? So again, if you come from a traditional background in the data center, the fact that you have 100% fidelity, moments of downtime, again, Linux will boot within 5 to 7 minutes. Don't quote me on that. Windows takes a little bit longer because it's Windows, but you can have extremely low RTO, again, of minutes as it shows on the slide here. So again, a great service to kind of extend your data center into the cloud. When you're done, the event has ended, you terminate everything, it goes away, you fail back to your on-premise data center, and everything's great. So this is used by a fair amount of customers. I've worked with a few financial services as well as research firms that are using this, and the time frame that they're able to save on this is pretty significant. So storage gateways, this is probably a bit more kind of down to earth type of hybrid area, but hybrid storage. So everyone's familiar with storage. So it's a very common hybrid approach. I think almost every customer I work with AWS has this implemented in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure if you work with AWS, you probably have this. You work with folks that do. So folks want to take advantage of cloud-based storage, but they also want some control as far as things, running things on premise, right? So this allows you to connect your on-premises applications to cloud storage to reduce costs, to increase uptime, those type of things. And that's basically the AWS Storage Gateway service. So what are some use cases for this? So obviously backup and recovery is that the cloud literally has unlimited storage. I mean, I guess there's probably a limit, but it's virtually unlimited. If you've racked and stacked SAN or NAS storage on premise, it's a lot more money than backing things up into S3. Archives, like just cold data, storing things into, Glacier or some of our cold-based storage, it's remarkably inexpensive, just it's even almost hard to calculate how low the cost is for that. Content distribution, accessing data to on-prem as well as that. And then, branch office storage is basically having branch offices having the ability to do backup. So if you ever work in the company, it's very distributed, it has lots of branch offices. Usually you have a lot of failure in those branch offices as far as hardware, network connections, those type of things. So the ability to kind of keep their data safely backed up, safely replicated in AWS is great for a very distributed company. Again, we have 3 different types of services. There's file gateway, tape gateway, volume gateway. I'm not going to go into details, but they'll support all the standard file systems, NFS, SMB, and iSCSI, and it will connect to all of our basically storage services, S3 Glacier, Deep Archive, EBS, and AWS Backup. And now there's been an announcement today. So Ron mentioned kind of some pre-reInvent announcements. Just the other day, we had a storage event, and now you can store up to 64 terabytes in a tape and a volume gateway. That's a monstrous amount of storage that if you need to store, that's actually 4 times increase from what you actually had a couple days ago. So if you need incredible amounts of storage in the cloud, go look at AWS Storage Gateway. Snow Family. Hopefully it's not snowing where you're at yet, but so AWS has a Snow Family. You probably heard about Snowball. You probably have seen the snowmobile truck. Probably won't deal with the snowmobile truck unless you got some, really amazing data center moves, right? But there's a lot of great use cases in the hybrid cloud for AWS Snowball Edge. And basically what these are Snowball is basically a hard drive that you ship, you plug into your network, you copy the files on there, you ship to AWS, they copy it. As long as you get it back in a certain amount of time, there's really no cost to you. You don't pay anything. And it's 50 to 80 terabytes of storage. It's pretty quick. It's kind of an appliance-based approach. Snowball Edge actually adds compute to that, and as Steve mentioned a bit earlier, has green grass, has local compute power. So folks use this, companies use this for running remote workloads in the cloud. Say, for example, I've seen these on fishing boats and very remote locations like oil wells and things like that, where I don't have compute access, I don't have reliable internet access, but I have power, I can run these things, but I also need to do some processing. I can't just capture raw data, I need to do some processing with that. So this will run AMI, so you can build your AMIs and deploy that. Runs Linux, and the new announcement as of, what is today, November, as of yesterday, is now we support Windows server workloads on Snowball Edge. So that's actually amazing. Windows 2012, 2016, and 2019. So so you can run Windows workloads on this as well. So if you're a Windows shop, totally looking at Snowball Edge and doing some of your workloads. Again, on the edge, again, unlimited amount of use cases you can do with this, but it's really a great tool, and really just part of that hybrid cloud solution that you can build. So again, this just kind of covers this a bit. Again, most most use of Snowballs are bulk data migration, but again, this is kind of a bit of the process, but you're creating a job, you're collecting data, you're processing, kind of munging that data, you ship to AWS and it goes into S3. So think about workloads again, where it's not just raw data that has to be captured, but business logic, business process have to be applied to it. Perfect use case for a Snowball Edge. Transfer family. So SFTP, everyone's favorite. If you worked in a data center, everyone uses SFTP. So SFTP has been around forever. It's something that's used internally, externally with customers. If you're in FinServ, if you're in healthcare, I've worked in all those industries, you're using SFTP. There's really no way around that in a legacy data center environment. It's a great protocol, but it's a little complex. You have some cert management challenges, and kind of just moving your server technology that you have on premise to AWS is possible. But the great news now is we have AWS SFTP, which is a managed service that basically takes away all the challenge, all the technical complexity from you, and allows you is fully managed, is highly available, which again, if you've run FTP servers in the past, usually it's a single point of failure on a single server. Setting up HA FTP and with the DNS and all that has been a challenge in the past. And you can store your data in S3, which again gives you unlimited amounts of storage for that. So existing SFTP users and clients can connect to AWS Transfer. So you basically set up AWS Transfer for SFTP. You connect it to an S3 bucket. There's no change to existing clients. They can use the same keys. And if you do some DNS work, you can connect them right to the AWS cloud with that. It could be SSH. It can just be password authentication. It's your decision as far as what you want to do with that. You can also create custom identity providers that if you want to just use, again, standard password authentication, you can create that against perhaps custom identity stores that you have either on premise or in the cloud for that. So again, a great tool to have. And again, these are some customers that are using this service today. A great service for those of us who've worked in battle with SFTP in the past. But you can literally replace your existing SFTP with this service in a very short period of time. Rolling the DataSync, which is again another hybrid technology. This is basically an online data transfer service that simplifies, automates, and accelerates your online data transfer. It's fast. It's much faster than any open source technology. It does some sort of magic as far as compression and delta detection. It will allow you to migrate to AWS, but the great thing is bi-directional. So if you have a lot of data transfer back and forth from on-premise to AWS, DataSync is a great way to go as far as that. So moving data, backing up data, transferring data, archiving data, replicating data, it just gives you some great options as far as that. It's fully encrypted. It can copy data between NFS, SMB. Actually can copy from AWS storage devices, and it can get to S3, EFS, and FXS, right? And another announcement that came out yesterday in our storage day was previously DataSync required an agent that you had to kind of drop it to your network and run on systems. Now there is an agentless offer that will make your life a lot easier as far as running that. You don't have to deploy a EC2 based agent that will run and kind of handle the synchronization work. So now it's a fully managed service as far as that, low touch, low footprint. How does it work? This is a little bit out of date because I'm missing some file types, but and again, you don't need the agent necessarily anymore. But as of November 8th, you dropped an agent onto your VMware or you add an EC2 environment. It'll set up highly parallelized transfers using an optimized network protocol. It's obviously secure. It's over TLS. This could run through over the public internet if you want, VPN, direct connect, your network connection, right? So it's secured. Definitely recommend your own network connection, but it can run in other ways. Again, it's fully managed, and it's going to write to S3 EFS and other things. And again, as we talked about in the beginning slide, it leverages our IAM and our VPC type of connections as far as connection endpoints and those type of things to increase security for your storage. So I'm going to wrap it up with some end user computing stories. These are kind of near and dear to me. So AWS Workspace, or sorry, Amazon Workspaces is a managed cloud desktop. So this is Windows and Linux-based environments. Where this really can come in is that literally you can scale thousands of desktops to workers in the globe in minutes and maybe a couple hours. But I have personal experience with this with a customer who had over 5,000 call center employees who were based in Pakistan and the Philippines primarily. With COVID, they are all sent home. If you're a call center and you don't have people in the call center, you're not going to stay in business very long. So we work very closely with them to deploy AWS Workspaces. Did a lot of heavy work as far as actually getting VoIP to work over that, for example, right? But they were able to continue their call center operations throughout the shutdown, throughout the changes that we have. It's a great technology. Again, it's a virtual desktop that you connect to that's fully managed. And again, both OSs, it's pay as you go. You turn it on, you shut it down, you only pay as long as that operating system is up as running. It's not a virtual machine. It's again a managed service that you're running for your end users. Desktop application streaming. So if you kind of think about what lower level is, I don't want to share an entire desktop. I just want to share an application. AppStream allows your end users to simply run an application that you have. So if you have a legacy application that you need to run, it'll basically create a similar window to a workspace and allow you to stream that application to any web browser. So any HTML5 compliant web browser, I don't need to install a client. I don't need any footprint, but I can actually deploy an application directly to end users over AppStream. So again, if you think about the need for pandemic response, readiness as far as that, mobile workers, merger and acquisition activities, these are great use cases. If you work in financial services and you're bringing in temps or contractors or new people, sometimes it takes literally weeks to get them provisioned and laptop and background checked, right? You can get them up very quickly in a workspace until you switch them over into a corporate managed device. And then the ability from security and compliance, you actually can have severely locked down workspaces that actually exceed what you can do at a Windows-based laptop, for example, for GXP compliance and those type of things, and make that your team's work environment. So again, another great technology to offer there. So in closing, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. Just think about these as you're thinking about, do you need hybrid cloud? Probably yes. Next question. What are your goals and time frame for hybrid? So do you need it quickly? Then I think looking at AWS solutions is going to be there. I think looking at disaster recovery for things like VMware and CloudEndure, great solutions. Again, if your RTO and RPO is very, very low, you're going to want to look at one of those two solutions, right, for that. And it's really depending on kind of which direction do you want to go. Do you want to go EC2? Do you want to stay VMware? Both are great solutions. Do you need local, remote, but fully capable cloud-based computing? That's where things like Outposts and other technologies that Lee's going to cover next, right, are amazing type of capabilities that we have. Again, we talk about extending storage. Do you need basically infinite storage in the cloud? Yeah, probably you need that. And then extending your local systems is, I need to get SFTP out of my network. Let AWS handle that. We can do that. And again, I think really, these kind of crazy COVID pandemic emergent situations, who knows what the next thing is going to be. Do you need a rapid way to do all these things for workers? Yes, that's where workspaces and AppStream can really help you instantly cut over thousands, tens of thousands of workers into a fully managed service. So with that, thank you, everyone. Again, I appreciate your time.